We know that behind each series there is a very large work team, and among all those people there are designers in charge of making the costumes for each team. We also know that sometimes the decisions are not made by the designer, but by the high-ranking bosses, and that's why sometimes it's not the costume designer's fault that things go wrong. Still, we must make a list mentioning the ugliest costumes that have appeared in the entire history of the franchise. Sometimes the entire team has the same costume, but there are some Rangers who have a different costume than the rest of the team. At other times, the costume only looks ugly in certain specific colors, or perhaps because of some modification they made to it. It is worth mentioning that in this video we will only talk about the costumes and everything the Ranger has on from the neck down. In this video, we will not talk about the helmets because, as we have mentioned in other videos, the helmet and the suit can be judged separately. I want to start with the Beast Morphers team, a team that almost didn't make this list, but unfortunately, I had to add them. The reason they almost didn't make the list is because I can give them credit for trying something totally different, but we have to be honest as they failed in the attempt. I know that maybe this decision can be very controversial since there are many who like the costumes of this team, but to me they just seem as if Spider-Man didn't have an official costume and put on the first coat he found along with his mom's belt. In this review, I only want to talk about the three main colors, as the Gold Ranger and Silver Ranger have slightly different and better costumes than the other Rangers. Another very horrible thing about these suits is what they wear on their shoulders. When you look at them from the front, they look like they have a backpack, and that makes them look like they are going to school. I think the worst thing of all is the texture of the fabric, as that is what makes them look like ordinary clothes. The other team with very ugly costumes are in space, and even though it is an iconic series, unfortunately their costumes were terrible. The design of those squares on the chest is something they tried to create to give it a future or space style, but they just look like part of an old video game. I know there are awesome designs that other modern artists have created with these suits, as they have managed to make those squares on the chest something more special, but unfortunately, we have to talk about the original suit. I know that because Power Rangers is linked to Sentai, there are many things about the costumes that should make them a bit generic, but sometimes they overdo it too much. The center of the belt has a design similar to letter mailing envelopes, and the supposed gold color doesn't match anything on the costume. I'm also not going to understand why they have that yellow part near the neck, as that doesn't help the costume design either, and we can tell this by looking at the Yellow Ranger costume. After In Space came Lost Galaxy, and maybe we thought the costumes were going to improve, but apparently, they kept the same people from the previous season. Apparently, these costume designers from the previous season hated Power Rangers and ended up making one of the ugliest costumes in the entire history of the franchise. The white part of the chest ends before it reaches the waist, and this just looks like they ran out of white fabric, and everyone agreed to leave the white fabric up to there. Then, we have this black line that goes from top to bottom, forming some triangles on the white parts. Honestly, whoever did this design was really bored that day and just started drawing some lines with his eyes closed. When the Lost Galaxy season finally ended, we were hoping that now the costumes were going to improve, and then came Lightspeed Rescue. Here the only good thing the costume designer did was to add the gold parts, the rest is a disaster. The design the Rangers have on the chest is the same design the circus tents have. The Red Ranger looks like the holster the popcorn comes in. I can understand that maybe the subject matter is a little difficult to bring to the design and transform it into something real, but to create this you need a group of collaborators, and it's hard to think that all these people agreed to send this mess. Lightspeed Rescue is over, and now there's no way they didn't fire the previous designer, and next season we're going to have some amazing costumes. Apparently, They hired the same team with bad taste and created these costumes for Time Force. These are super simple costumes, but simple doesn't always have to be bad. Unfortunately, on this one occasion, simple worked against them as the costumes looked terrible. The chest design is one of the worst designs I've seen, as it's just arrows pointing down. On top of that, they add some silver-colored parts on the boots and forearms. This suit is definitely unsalvageable, and although the idea of making the helmet visor the same color as the suit was very innovative, unfortunately, the suit ruined everything. After that season ended, we had several seasons with excellent costumes because apparently, they fired the team that was in charge of designing the costumes, but when we got to the Operation Overdrive season, they hired them again. This time the designers wanted to ruin everything and mark all their hatred towards the franchise. Being quite honest, the costumes are not super ugly, but the logo for this season is the worst thing I have ever seen in my life. For those who don't know, I'm a graphic designer by trade, and I've seen a lot of horrible logos in my professional life, but this season's logo was one of the worst I've ever seen. The design that the suits have was based only on dividing the color with a white part in the center of the body and under the arms. The rest is only the logo and the parts that complement the boots, gloves and shoulders, which are made of a silver color. The decision to put these parts in silver was a good one, but the lines made them look like old metal parts you find in a dumpster. For me, the worst thing about this season is not the regular Team Rangers. For me, the worst thing is the 6th Ranger, who has a few different things on his costume and raised the bar for how terrible a costume designer can be. Let's start with the color of the Ranger, which is supposed to be silver, and his suit looks like what people wear to work out and want to sweat a lot. He also looks like a chicken wrapped in aluminum foil about to go in the oven. In addition to this, they changed the white color that all the Rangers have and put it in black color, but with an orange line. To continue with the terrible decisions, they changed the design of the shoulders and make all that bigger and uglier. Finally, all those silver parts on the other Rangers can't be the same color as the Silver Ranger because they won't show, so they changed them to blue. So, this Ranger ends up with a color scheme of silver, blue, orange, black, white and red. The award for the ugliest costume in Power Rangers history goes to the Silver Ranger from Operation Overdrive. Leave in the comments which are the ugliest costumes for you. If you think some of these costumes are ugly, like this video and subscribe for more Power Rangers costumes.